Electronic Arts CEO Andrew Wilson is doing his best to hype up Dragon Age the Veilguard just before its release. Unfortunately for him, it appears that he is following the exact same playbook that Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot tried to use with Star Wars Outlaws. And as we saw, that playbook was an absolute disaster. And the gamers decided not to be fooled by any of it. They did not show up to purchase Star Wars Outlaws, and it is quite possible that we might be seeing a similar result here with Dragon Age the Veilguard. I wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. You can find the link in the description below. You can also find a link to become a member of the channel where you can help support me exposing this woke ideology that has infected video games, movies, and television and is threatening to destroy our society, and helping me spread the word about how vile this ideology is and work to push back against it. So with that out of the way, let's get to what Andrew Wilson had to say. He recently appeared on EA's Q2 2025 earnings conference call, and he shared his optimism that the game will perform well. He said, "It's an amazing time at EA, and in 2 days, we will launch Dragon Age the Veilguard. It's been 10 years since we launched its predecessor, Game of the Year winner, Dragon Age Inquisition. Early critic scores are strong and reflect the high-quality depth and detail in the niche's action-packed adventure. We expect Dragon Age to be a great example of how our blockbuster storytelling engages and connects fans in truly unique ways." In the Q&A portion of the call, he was asked by Raymond James Financial Group analyst Andrew Merrick, "I have seen some very strong reviews so far, but as far as you can tell, what drives that kind of breakout success we've seen in some single-player fantasy games in the last couple of years, and how do you feel that Veilguard might compare along those lines?" And this is how Wilson responded. "I certainly think Veilguard has breakout potential. Again, 10 years ago, Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year and was a very strong performer for us in the conduct of our business. This is entertainment. And so while much of our business has moved to live service, moment to moment, deliver innovation and creativity for a deeply engaged community over the course of time, this opportunity to bring in incredibly high quality creative storytelling set in an amazing world with rich characters living out those stories, you're able to capture that moment in entertainment. Success almost certainly follows." He explained, and we see that in the context of movies, and we're seeing in the context of TV seasons, and we see in the context of video games. When we think about what we have with Veilguard right now, we have a storied studio in BioWare, we have a storied IP in Dragon Age, we have a team that took extra time to make sure the world was rich and the characters were interesting and the story was compelling. I don't know if he's actually seen any of this game at all. I think we're going into a market that has limited competition for this category of game. I think that's untrue as well. Metaphor just released earlier this month, given some of the moves that have happened across the broader industry. So that is what he had to say. And he continued saying this. And so while I think it's too early to predict the outcome, the critical reviews have been incredibly strong. The team feels really energized by what they have delivered. And my sense is that, yes, it has breakout capability. So he reiterated that again, thinking that this game has a breakout possibility, that it's going to be do amazingly well. However, the company's chief financial officer, Stuart Canfield, shared that the company was, quote, maintaining our assumptions for our upcoming Dragon Age the Veilguard launch this week and our partner title slated to launch in Q4. He later added, turning to Q3, we expect net bookings of $2.4 billion to $2.55 billion, up 1% to up 8% year over year, largely driven by the launch of Dragon Age and continued growth in our EA Sports FC franchise. So while Wilson is hyping up the game, saying it could be a breakout success, you get the actual kind of information from Stuart Canfield, where it's like, we aren't really changing our assumptions at all. Like, we're going to basically see a tick of increase of 1% compared to the quarter and maybe 8% year over year. So we'll see if they actually do hit that 8% mark. That it will be a number to watch right there moving forward. So as I said at the very beginning of this video, though, these comments, the ones that Wilson made, are extremely similar to what Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot said ahead of the release of Star Wars Outlaws. If you recall, Guillemot told investors this: "What we have factored in is a strong launch for Star Wars Outlaws that reflects the fact that it is among the most awaited games of the industry this year and a really strong positive community sentiment. and also the fact that we are coming with the biggest marketing campaign ever so far for an Ubisoft game. So that's what we've been factoring in the second quarter. So obviously he's saying they had a very positive community sentiment. Sounds very similar to what Wilson is talking about in regards to the reviews for that game, which we will get to here in a little bit. You fast forward a few months, and Ubisoft revealed that sales for the game were, quote, softer than expected, and they were cutting their net booking projections for its second quarter from 500 million euros to 350 to 370 million euros. That is a 30% decline. 30% decline. And they clearly pointed to Star Wars Outlaws being the main cause of that. Obviously, in his earnings report, his earnings conference call, Guillemot would also reveal that XDefiant weighed into that as well. And then we would get a rumor that the game only sold 1 million copies in its first month, after investors were expecting at least 5 million copies sold. And then I've done some research on this, and it looks like they haven't sold anything since then. And if they have, it's extremely, extremely minimal. You can look at the Twitch statistics. It's completely fallen off, 99% decline. The game is pretty much just dead. It's dead. No matter, they might release it here on Steam in the next month, but I doubt that will really move anything. This game is pretty much just dead in the water. We've seen them release games to Steam after they had previously released them on other platforms, and they really haven't made any kind of movement for those games whatsoever. And then what is also interesting is there is another similarity between Dragon Age and Star Wars Outlaws. Ubisoft buttered up YouTubers, creators, streamers, etc., flew them out to Disneyland. We're giving them all of these perks and everything out there in California in order to convince them to give positive reaction and reviews of the game. Well, BioWare and EA did something similar. They brought them all out to play Dragon Age for like 7 hours. There's tons of creators who have talked about this, and many of them have said that even after they did their play test, they were I guess maybe mildly critical of the game, and they didn't get review codes for the entire game. But they were trying to get people to basically sing the praises for this game, and they did fly people out to do a 7-hour playtest of the game. And I would assume they pay for their airfare, they put them up in hotels, very similar to what we saw with Star Wars Outlaws. Now, albeit Star Wars Outlaws, they were giving them like a literally like tour of Disneyland, etc. Unclear if there were any other perks that went along with with the people getting flown out to play test Dragon Age, but that did indeed happen. But what is a little bit different, and the difference here between Star Wars Outlaws and Dragon Age is that BioWare and EA are actually being accused of manipulating the review scores. And this is coming from YouTuber F Extra Life. I've talked about this in previous videos, but he basically says that EA and BioWare are attempting to basically curate who reviews the game in order to drive the best possible scores for the game. So they didn't give him a review code. They didn't give Wolfheart FPS a review code. They didn't give some other streamers review codes who had mild criticisms of the game during that playtest. Instead, they were giving review codes to people who were going to likely give high scores for this game based on previous reviews that these people have given. And the EA was probably looking at that and determining who they would give it to. We've also seen evidence that they were giving review codes to people who identified as quote unquote non-binary. And so they were giving it to people in kind of that alphabet team, on Team Alphabet there, in order to obviously try and maximize those review scores. So there is a lot of controversy around these review scores. Obviously, F Extra Light pointing to that. I'm not going to go over all that. If you want to, again, you can read all of this in the link in the description below. And then obviously we also had Mark Kern Grums pointing out that you look at a lot of these reviews, they all have very similar language. And then that language is specifically what John Epler wrote on Blue Sky about how he wanted to see the phrase a triumphant return to form for BioWare in at least one review for the game. And he posted that here on Blue Sky. You can see the screenshot in front of you. And if you look through all of these kind of reviews here, whether that be on Metacritic, whether you just do a Google search, they all say return to form, 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 return to form. They all have that language in there. That is language that was used by John Epler in Blue Sky and was likely used in the press kit that BioWare, Epler, and that team sent out to all of these people that they sent them out. They always send out these press kits, and that was likely in the press kit. And so they were likely using that language from the press kit to inform their reviews. So there is a lot of skullduggery at work here with the BioWare reviews for Dragon Age, the Veilguard. And to me, all of this looks so similar to Star Wars Outlaws. I expect something similar to take place with Dragon Age the Veilguard. I think it will probably have decent sales, just like Star Wars Outlaws. Million copies sold in probably the first month. But I think at the end of the day, that is going to be softer than expected. Those are not going to be what they want. Remember, with Star Wars Outlaws, investors were expecting at least 5 million units sold based on all of the hype that Ubisoft was building for that game. However, they clearly only got to 1 million. That's what, 20%. So absolutely terrible job on that. And they admitted that it was softer than what they expected. And they decreased their entire Q2 net bookings by 30%. We'll find out later today how low it actually went. So I think we're going to see something similar with Dragon Age, the Veilguard, as we saw with Star Wars Outlaws. All the signs are pointing in that direction. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.